Okay, thank you. Welcome for our lesson today. We still proceed, so we have reached to standard 8 level, of which we have talked about fertilization and fetal development, and then we will have summarized the topic. Now, under fertilization, straight away we have to understand the meaning of fertilization, where it happens, and also types of fertilization. So we will start by defining the term fertilization. So fertilization is the union or fusion of the nuclei of the ovum and the sperm. So you understand that the ovum is the female the female sex cell, and the sperm is the male sex cell. So when the two fuse or unite together, that is what we call fertilization. Now, when you talk about the types of fertilization, there are two types of fertilization. One, we have the internal type of fertilization, and we also have external type of fertilization. Now, what do we mean when we talk about the internal and external fertilization? Internal type of fertilization is a type of fertilization that takes place inside a female's body. So internal fertilization, this is a type of fertilization that takes place inside the body of the female. It takes place in human beings, birds, reptiles, and many other animals. So you find that the largest percentage type of fertilization, that one is internal fertilization. So external fertilization, the second type of fertilization, we have said is external fertilization. So this is a type of fertilization that takes place outside the female's body. So this one does not take place inside the female's body, but it takes place outside the female's body. Now, in which type of animals that undergo external type of fertilization, you find that it takes place in only amphibians and fish. It only takes place in amphibians and fish. When we were categorizing animals, we categorized animals under the amphibians, fish, the mammals, the reptiles, and the birds. Those are the 5 groups of which you learned about that one in standard 5. So what are some of types of amphibians? We have the toad, the frog, the salamander, and the newt. Those are the 4 amphibians. And we have so many types of fish. So those are the types of animals that undergo external type of fertilization. So when you talk about the external, so the female sex cell, the ovum, and the male sex cell, the sperms, meet outside the female's body. That is external type of fertilization. So here we will have to observe the structure of the sperm and also the structure of the ovum. Here you find that a sperm cell is having the head, the middle piece, and also the tail. The sperm cell is having a nuclei in the head. So this one is the nuclei that meets the nuclei in the ovum that forms the zygote. So ovum cell, an ovum cell is also having its nuclei and the cell membrane. So outside is the cell membrane. So when the sperm cell and the ovum meets together, that is what we call fertilization. So let us talk about the process of fertilization here. Now, what happens and where? You find that fertilization in human beings specifically, I want to talk about human beings, takes place in the oviduct or the fallopian tube. You find that during sexual intercourse, which is also known as coitus, or we can call it copulation, that is sexual intercourse, is also known as coitus or copulation. You find that sperms are introduced in the female reproductive system by the penis. So the sperms are introduced in the female reproductive system by the penis. you find that the sperms cannot move alone. When we were talking about the male reproductive system, we talked about the glands. So the glands in the male reproductive system are the one that produces liquid-like substance where the sperms move. Now the sperms swim in the semen. Semen is a mixture of the fluid from the glands and the sperm. So the mixture, the fluid assists the sperm to move smoothly. So you find that the sperm swim in semen using their tails. The tails are the one that assist the sperm to move smoothly. So until they reach in the oviduct. So the sperm from the male reproductive system, they are deposited into the vagina, and then they move, they swim with their tails until they reach the oviduct or the fallopian tube. Now in the fallopian tube you find that they meet there a mature ovum. So a mature ovum from the ovary, when the ovum is mature, it moves to the oviduct. So still in the oviduct, the sperm will come there and meet. So in that process is what we call fertilization. Now the nuclei in the sperm and the ovum meet or fuse to form a new cell known as the zygote. So after fertilization you find that the two nuclei, the sperm cell and also the ovum cell, fuse together or meet together to form a zygote. So after fertilization you find that a woman becomes pregnant. Immediately after fertilization, after the two cells meeting together, that is what we call the woman has become pregnant, or we can say the woman has conceived. So you find that in the oviduct we have one mature ovum there. One mature ovum. The sperm cells are very many. There are very many that are coming to meet this. They can be as many as 1,000 sperm cells. So when the sperm cell circulate the ovum, you find that only one sperm cell will have to penetrate and meet the nuclei, but the remaining will be destroyed. So only one sperm cell will fertilize the ovum and the rest will be destroyed. So that is what we call fertilization process. So allow me to talk about what happens after fertilization. Now we have said that the sperm cell has made the ovum. After fusion, fertilization takes place, and what forms is what we call the zygote. Immediately we have the two cells meeting to form the zygote. Now what happens after fertilization? You find that immediately after fertilization, well, let us talk about what happens after fertilization. After the zygote being formed and the woman has become pregnant, what happens? You find that the zygote undergoes cell division. Number one, the zygote undergoes there were only two cells, the female cell and the male cell uniting to form a zygote. So it undergoes cell division. It doubles number of cells. Now it travels down to the uterus and attaches it and attaches to the already thickened uterus wall. That is what happens. It travels downwards and attaches to the already thickened uterus wall. Then the attachment of the zygote to the uterine wall is called implantation. The attachment of the zygote to the uterine wall is called implantation. The attachment of the zygote to the uterine wall is known as implantation. Now, after implantation, the zygote is given another name. After implantation, the zygote is called an embryo. After implantation, now it is no longer a zygote. It is given another new name, that is an embryo. And then we say that after fertilization, this is what happens. The zygote undergoes cell division immediately after fertilization, still in the oviduct. Now, after undergoing cell division, it starts traveling downwards to the uterus. You find that the walls of the uterus now becomes very thick. Immediately after fertilization, they become very thick than they were before fertilization. Then the zygote will have to hang. It attaches itself on already thickened uterine wall. And then after it have attached, has attached there, it is now called an embryo. So that process of a zygote attaching on the uterine wall is what we call implantation. Now, if fertilization does not take place, what will happen? You find that we talked about ovulation. Last time I was talking about ovulation. This is release of ovum. The release of a mature ovum after every 28 days. That is what we call ovulation. Ovulation, the mature ovum comes outside ready to be fertilized. So I have said after fertilization we have the formation of the zygote and the woman becomes pregnant. Now, what will happen if fertilization fails? What happens? What happens if fertilization fails? It is not compulsory that when a mature ovum comes out, fertilization will take place. Sometimes fertilization cannot be there. Now, in case the mature ovum moves to the oviduct, readiness for fertilization, and fertilization is not taking place, what will happen? You find that the ovum and the thick wall of the uterus breaks. The ovum and the thick uterine wall breaks or ruptures. Breaks or ruptures, or we can say disintegrates. The ovum is ready in the oviduct waiting for fertilization to take place. If there is no introduction of sperm cell to that mature ovum, you find that it gets annoyed. It breaks. The thick wall of the uterus also breaks, or we can say it ruptures, or we can say disintegrates. So after disintegration, it will have to come out through the vagina, and that is the process known as menstruation, or we can call it monthly period. So it comes out, then after disintegrating, it comes out It comes out through the vagina in form of blood. It comes out through the vagina in form of blood, and this process is what we call menstruation. Menstruation cycle, or we can call it monthly period. Okay, that is what happens. So when a mature ovum comes out, I said it is ready for fertilization, and if fertilization takes place, that is what we have for formation of the zygote. Then we say the woman is pregnant. But if fertilization does not take place, you find that the mature ovum, which is in the oviduct, and the thickened uterine wall will have to rupture. That is disintegration, and it comes out in the form of blood, and that is the period we call menstruation period, which takes place in every month, hence the name given, monthly period. That is what we call fertilization. Then next subtopic we have to talk about fetal development. Fetal development. You can read ahead of me before the lesson as we proceed. So that is the end of our lesson today. Thank you very much.